Welcome, everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for Horizon's June community event. Looking at the list of attendees, it's great to see so many familiar names in attendance, and there's a bunch I've never seen before. So welcome to the Horizon community, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and as excited as I am to be here this evening to learn about Alan Carson's top secrets to building a $1 million inspection business. Before we get to that, though, introductions are in order, and I'd like to mention that my name is Brian. I work at Horizon Inspection Software, and I'm here to help facilitate tonight's webinar and address any technical issues that you might experience. So feel free to chat with me during the presentation. And joining me this evening is Mr. Alan Carson, founder and CEO of Carson Dunlop. How are you doing tonight, Alan?
Brian, I'm doing great. So it's going to be a fun evening.
Right, excited to hear that. Now, before I pass the reins over, Alan, I am just going to explain how people can participate in the webinar. Everyone's probably familiar with this already, but just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the basics. So you're going to see an orange button. You can expand or minimize the control panel at any point in time, my friends. When you got the control panel expanded, you can select your preferred audio method. Most people are going to listen through their speakers, but phone call will give you a toll-free number. Dial in and listen by phone. Questions? We encourage you to submit them at any time. If it's technical related, I'll do my best to try to help you during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll save it for Alan at the end of our event. All right, let's go ahead and pass that over to Alan so we can get ourselves underway.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. Quick technology check. Is my screen showing up properly for you, Brian?
Looks good to me, sir.
Beautiful, good to go. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining on a beautiful summer night. Quick note on the agenda, short and sweet tonight. I'm going to ramble on for about 60 minutes talking about a whole bunch of different things. We'll have a word from our friends at Homebinder that I can tell you that's kind of cool. And then we'll throw it open as usual to question and answer, and we'll bounce around until Brian tells me it's my bedtime. I understand from the title of tonight's thing that we're talking about $1 million business, but I do understand not everybody wants to build $1 million business. Some of you just want to do great inspections, help out clients as a sole practitioner, and I think that is absolutely awesome. And ignoring the title for a moment, I think the discussion should be helpful whether you're looking to build an empire or work part-time in home inspection. Hopefully there'll be something in there for you. Now, I should say, as always, that what you're going to get tonight is unfiltered Alan Carson. I am not the last word. You are getting my opinion based on my experience. Feel free to throw out the stuff that doesn't fit for you. And I'm going to promise you're not going to agree with everything I'm going to say. What I will ask you to do, though, is listen for the things that do work for you. And I understand it won't be everything. It may not even be a lot, but I want to challenge your conventional wisdom thinking a little bit. I want to push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And if you end up in a different spot at the end, that's great. If all you've done is reaffirm that you're in the right spot, that's not all bad either. Okay, speaking of what you're trying to accomplish, Brian, I would love to start off with a little poll if we can do that. Let me see if this guy will change screens for me. Come on, there we go.
Sure.
So, Brian, if you can throw this up, I've got 5 questions. I'm just trying to get a sense of where you folks are on the range of doing home inspection part-time and doing a great job for a small number of people, or whether you're looking to build an empire. So I think there are 5 questions there. You only get to choose one. And I always have a really short time limit on these things. Brian typically gives a little more. Brian, I'll let you run the stopwatch as to how long people get.
For sure. We'll give them 30 seconds at least. Get their bearings, feet wet. We're throwing them into the fire real quick here with a poll, but we're getting a lot of participation, which is great. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving us your esteemed insights into where you are trying to build your business. We're getting a really interesting result here. All right, a couple more seconds and we'll cap off everyone. Okay, so for context, we have present about 150 people in attendance, and we're continuing to grow. From that, we've had 80% vote, and survey says, so 9% part-time rewarding work, 19% would like to make a decent living, roughly net revenue of 50,000 or so, 34% would like to make a really good living, about 100,000. We've got 18% at 250 or more a year, and 20% would love to turn a business and from $1 million profit to a $5 million whale. So
Wow.
a nice variety mix.
Yeah, you couldn't have asked for a much better kind of cross section than that. So that is perfect. Okay, well, let's get into it. May as well go ahead and get started and hope my computer behaves here. All right, let's see if we can move on. Okay, come on, computer. Whoa, moving forward on one screen, not another. What else is new? All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start with about 10 points. And when I say 10, please don't count because it's Alan Carson and you really can't trust me, so don't get too wound up in the numbers. But I am going to tell you that one of the secrets to success, again, whether you're looking to be small or big, is a great education is a great way to start. And it helps perform a better inspection, but it goes well beyond that. It helps when you have the confidence of knowing what it is you're doing and what you're talking about. It gives you the ability to present differently, to come across differently, to be quietly assured when you're doing inspections. So there is a change in your mental state and a change in your presentation. It may be subconscious, but that knowledge, and when I talk about education, I'm talking about at the beginning, but I'm also talking about continuous education and learning. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how it can build your business as you move forward. We'll get into ancillaries, how we can solve more problems for clients, do more things, and see where we go from there. All right. I also want to talk a little bit about my philosophy and about Carson Dunlop's philosophy that's evolved over 43 years. And that is client focused rather than dollar driven. And there are a lot of business coaches over the years I've talked to who say, if you focus on providing great service for your clients rather than the bottom line, the dollars will follow your performance. So I would encourage you to treat clients like favorite relatives, and that includes all of your clients. And in our business, most clients, really easy to do that. Some, an incredible challenge. The good news about home inspection is the toughest clients you have to deal with, you're typically only dealing with them for 2 or 3 hours and then you're moving on. So my recommendation, turn it into a game, see if you can win them over 2 or 3 hours and treat them like royalty, even if you don't think they deserve it. The next point would be you don't want to necessarily focus on winning every dollar battle. And by that, I mean fighting for your fee if there's a callback. I want you to think long term. I want you to think about maybe giving a feedback or part of a feedback or even more than a feedback is a marketing initiative. And if you've got a client who's absolutely wrong because you did a great job, that's a pretty common scenario for home inspectors to be in. And what I find is most home inspectors, take it pretty personally, and I absolutely get that. I do too. But when you take a step back from it, if you can disassociate your emotions, it sometimes makes really good business sense, again, over the long term, not to win the battle, but to focus on winning the war and to give that client some satisfaction and turn an unhappy detractor into a happy promoter. And remember, there are other people watching, and especially in the world of social media today. So whether it's just the immediate people involved in the transaction, might be a real estate agent, might be the other side, might be the seller. But if you can win that client back by giving in a little, even when you shouldn't, I think that can be a really good decision. I wanted to just touch base really quickly on the words client versus customer. It is my goal in life to raise the bar in the home inspection profession. And the reason I refer to our clients as clients and not customers is when I think customer, I think shopping for something in a retail store. I'm a customer when I go into a grocery store and buy a quart of milk. I'm a customer when I go to a gas station. But I'm a client when I go and talk to an engineer or an architect, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. I think we are in a professional consulting practice. And I think consulting practices refer to their clients as clients. It's a small thing, but it helps me remember who we are. And I think we need to do a really good job collectively as a community to spread the word and to walk the walk that we are a professional consulting practice. It's been 43 years. We haven't gotten as far down that road as I would have liked to, and I take some responsibility for that. We've got a ways to go, and I think little tiny things like that cumulatively make a difference over time. I also want to talk about the difference between your personal reputation and your company brand. They are definitely aligned, especially in home inspection. But for those of you with growth aspirations, I think you need to focus on both. And as time goes on and as your company matures, I think your focus changes more from personal reputation to building the credibility of your company brand. And the reason I say that is if your end goal is to create value in your company so that you might have an exit strategy, do you understand the difference between Mike's Home Inspection and the home inspection company? When you tie your name to it, it can restrict things a little bit. Carson Dunlop had that problem. We got away with it a little bit because Carson Dunlop sounds like a law firm or an accounting firm, I've been told. But even so, when we tried to step out of the field, and we were about 10 years into our career when we said we can't keep doing inspections forever because we're working in the business instead of working on the business. And it was hard to step away because we had built personal reputations, Bob Dunlop and myself, and people wanted to work with us. But you can't build a business around a human being and a personality because it doesn't sell. So my thinking is if you have visions of moving, pay attention to your company name, maybe too late, but think about driving your company as a brand rather than your personal reputation. Okay. Let's talk about connecting with clients. And I want to talk about different client types, and I want to talk about it in two different ways. So when we talk about consumers, I think of our collective clients as buyers, sellers, and homeowners. And each of those has different needs. And so when you want to connect with somebody, you have to be in a position where you can solve their needs, give them what they want. And a buyer and a seller and an owner have different wants. The buyer is making this huge financial commitment, this huge lifestyle commitment, and he wants to make an informed decision, doesn't want to make a mistake, doesn't want to buy a money pit. They're generally speaking terrified. The seller, on the other hand, is not emotionally attached. They are looking to sell the house as quickly and as easily and for as much money as they can. The homeowner is taking a long-term view, and it's kind of where the comments about the home binder chat we'll have in a little bit come into play. The homeowner takes a long-term view and says, now I am committed to this house. How do I protect my investment, keep my family warm, safe, and dry, minimize my operating costs, heating and cooling bills, and so on? So they are taking a longer-term view. Each of those three groups has a different set of needs. And so when you talk about building your marketing or your sales approaches, focus on who you're talking to and remind yourself of what their pain points are likely to be so you can show how you can help. On the real estate agent side, they have different needs yet again. They are in the business of facilitating real estate transactions. Their goal is to have a willing buyer and a willing seller come together and change ownership of the real estate. They have a whole complex set of needs, of which home inspection is one part. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But it is quite a different mindset than the consumer mindset, even though there are three different consumer mindsets. When you talk about connecting, I'm going to throw one other thing in here on this slide. And that is that in the early days when we started out, it quickly became apparent to us that we were going to focus on marketing to real estate agents because they sell many homes per year, whereas home buyers only buy a house once every 7 years or more. So on average, the real estate agent made a lot more sense for us to approach. Also, very easy to identify a real estate agent, much harder to identify a home buyer or someone who's thinking about buying a house. So that seemed to make really good sense, and it probably did for a certain amount of time. But the world has changed and continues to change quickly. It has changed in the sense that it is now much easier to reach out to consumers broadly and inexpensively through the internet, through social media, and so on. So even though buyers may only buy houses once every 7 years, there are way more prospective home buyers out there than there are real estate agents. So on balance, I'm saying, whereas in the past, focusing your marketing on the real estate community made great sense, I'm going to argue that it's not an either or thing, but I think if you're not paying attention to consumers, it is definitely worth thinking about. Okay, so let's focus. When we talk about consumers, I don't have time to go into the buyers, sellers, owners thing. Let's just focus on the buyers, because that's what I think most home inspection businesses are focused on anyway. So what are the challenges for home buyers? Well, I touched on some of them already. There's that money pit, that fear of letting the family down, getting my family into a place that puts us in unsafe living conditions, gets us in over our head. We have to make sacrifices. On top of which, people buying a house, and it's especially first-time buyers, but I think it's somewhat true for every buyer, there is information overload. There are so many people involved. There's typically the agent they're working with. There's the agent on the other side. There's the seller. There's a lawyer or attorney. There's an appraiser and a lender in there somewhere. There's a title company. There's a home insurer. And all of these people have forms and terms and language and acronyms that clients are not used to. It is a scary process. And you throw the home inspector into the mix, and that's one more element. Now, let me point out that one of the things that's interesting about this list is which people on this list have an unbiased interest in the home buyer's well-being. I'm going to tell you the only one is the home inspector. And I'm going to say that because nobody else gets paid on this list until a house sells. So they have an incentive for the home to sell. We, on the other hand, get paid whether the house sells or not. Something to think about, and I think it's part of the privilege and the responsibility of being a professional home inspector that we don't always think about. So in terms of solutions, I think we've talked about their problems. I'm going to say our role is to help them make an informed decision in a nutshell. We want to be clear that we are going to reduce their risk dramatically. And my best estimate is we take away about 80% of the risk. But we have to make it clear that we don't assume the risk, and that's part of setting expectations. So be careful in your marketing material. I'm not a huge fan of promising complete peace of mind, because that suggests you've assumed 100% of the risk and made the whole transaction absolutely risk-free. So if you want to live on the edge, go there, but just understand there's a bit of a risk of over-promising and under-delivering. So I have a passionate and firm belief that our role is the unbiased expert. And I'm going to go a step further and say, I want us to be not only their unbiased expert during the transaction, but throughout the entire period of home ownership. And that's why we offer free technical consulting for as long as our clients own the home. And people say to me, Alan, you're a moron. You can't be doing that. You're going to go broke. You're going to be harassed by people calling you all the time. Well, I used to get that a lot, but I can tell you after 43 years, I know that people do not abuse that privilege, and we do not get a ton of calls. And the best part of that role is if people call with a question, it's way better than getting a complaint from a lawyer. So when you offer free technical consulting, our most common call is, you said this in the report. You said the chimney needed mortar repair. I just had a chimney expert come in and he says it's got to be rebuilt from the roof level up. Now he's hearing different advice. We have a chance to go out and defend ourselves. We always offer to meet the masonry expert out on site and talk to them. They often don't show up, by the way. And so it is something that without that service offered, you can get thrown under the bus. And I won't go into my rant and my whole philosophy. I have a whole paper on it that Horizon users have access to called the last one in syndrome. And that is the tendency for consumers to believe the most recent information they got, not the most accurate. Okay, Brian will yell at me if I go on a tangent, and he's absolutely right. I do get excited about stuff and I go into left field, which I shouldn't. I'm going to try and do a better job and stay focused tonight. I'm also going to try and keep this to 60 minutes as I promised. You can call me out if I make a liar of myself. Okay, let's look at the real estate agent problems. So we looked at the problems for buyers and how to perhaps address them. What are the challenges that a real estate agent has? Well, as we said, their business goal is a sale. That's how they get paid. It's perfectly transparent. People who rail against real estate agents, frankly, irritate me. There are terrific real estate agents and horrible real estate agents. There are terrific home inspectors and horrible home inspectors. Enough said. People are people. It's a walk of life. It deserves the same amount of respect as any other. Okay, what are their challenges? There are so many steps and obstacles to getting a deal together, the least of which is, of course, finding the buyer and the seller and having the house that fits the new buyer. So putting those pieces together is enough without having to worry about, does the financing work? Does the timing work? Do the chattels work? Do the things that go along with the transaction work? Is there going to be a hiccup on getting homeowners insurance because it's got knob and tube wiring? There are a million things that can go on. And one real estate agent who'd been around forever put it to me this way: we're trying to build a chain, and one weak link breaks in the chain, everything falls apart. It's not a bad analogy. And that agent also told me that an additional challenge is people buying houses are stressed, and I think that's a fair comment. They are not always at their rational best, which makes it really tricky to work with them. And understanding these challenges is kind of what separates the top agents from the part-timers. And how that matters to us is this: the top agents generally take a long-term business-minded view of selling real estate. Just as I suggested at the outset, that's what you might want to do. The part-timers are hanging on every deal that's putting food on the table for them that month. Their focuses are very different. A top agent knows that they want to take care of the client and build out their referral business with a terrific relationship with each and every client. They know that if a transaction falls apart because of a home inspection, that client is more firmly attached to the agent than ever because the agent took care of them by recommending a really good home inspector to protect their interests. So the agent may lose that sale, but he keeps that client, and that client is ultimately going to buy a house, not that one. So it's a little more work, but you not only ultimately still get the sale, but you build the relationship and build the business. So I'm going to tell you, as a home inspector, it is a privilege to work with top agents who view life that way. And it can sometimes be way more challenging dealing with new or part-time agents who don't have the luxury of that focus. Okay, what can we do to help them along the way? And the last thing you're going to do is color your inspection reports or color your inspection to suit their needs. That is not going to happen, or you are not going to be around for very long. So just want to get that off the table. I don't think it's on the table for people in the audience anyway, but that should not be an issue. But what can we do? In a nutshell, try not to be an obstacle. Try not to get in the way. Try not to throw additional wrenches into the works. And one of the simple but really appreciated things that agents tell me is, please be accessible. Be there when we need you. The reality is real estate agents don't need you most of the time, and they don't care what you're doing. But when they need you, they usually need you in short order. So you can carry your cell phone with you and keep it turned on 24/7, but that gets a bit tiresome after a while. The online booking features in most of the modern software like Horizon allow you to be accessible to your clients online, and our system actually provides real booking in real time, looking at our schedule. So it's not one of those, put this in and we'll send you an email. It's kind of a wish and a prayer. No, this is a firm commitment. Using our online booking, people actually are booking an inspection in our schedule. They're getting that inspection. Agent Book I won't go into, but it is a very cool one-to-one app that you can set up with your agents that allow them to book an inspection in real time on your schedule in 2 clicks, quite literally. So being accessible is important. Being easy to work with, being friendly, being accommodating, it's the right thing to do in any business, but particularly, again, the high stress environment of a real estate transaction, I think requires us to be more accommodating than lots of other professionals. We have to understand the state of mind of the client and in some cases the agent, and we have to just give people, cut them a little slack because we know they are under stress. And by the way, a lot of clients hide that stress really well, and they might be joking around, they might be acting very calm on the outside. Rest assured, that's not what it looks like on the inside. One other thought on dealing with real estate agents is be consistent and be predictable. Be like the Holiday Inn with no surprises. It kills a real estate agent when you inspect a house and don't make a big deal of aluminum wiring. A month later, they've got another house in the same neighborhood with aluminum wiring. They say you're going to say this about it, and you come out with something different. That makes them look terrible, ruins their credibility, and probably ruins the relationship. So take advantage of things like Horizon's database, its ability to set up your comments, to be able to get things worded correctly with the right perspective once and be done with it so that you are absolutely consistent. You don't have to agonize over what to say about the controversial things in a house because you've decided in a cool, calm, quiet moment exactly what you're going to say each and every time. Okay, here are some secret words that I'm going to suggest that you use with the real estate community. We are just one spoke in your wheel. We are one piece of your puzzle. We understand it's your client, it's not our client. And we understand that you are loaning your client to us for 2 or 3 hours. And our job is to take great care of them and return them in good working order. By the way, we keep things in perspective. We have terrific bedside manner. We are non-alarmist. And please have the client attend the inspection so we can make sure there is no overreaction. It helps us so much to be able to look the client in the eye, see the body language, and know that they are not understanding our message and are overreacting to something absolutely trivial. And we then have the opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Let me try it another way. and then come back and have a conversation with the client to make sure that the message is kept in perspective. And in a nutshell, we want you to know that it's important to us to make you look good for recommending our firm. That is, for what it's worth, some of the things that I have found that have worked well with the real estate community. Now, I'm also going to suggest one other thing very quickly, and that is connecting with real estate agents. So if you can become an affiliate member of a real estate association, doing office drop-ins and presentations, and there are tons of home inspector marketing tools and coaching efforts around that. Sponsoring events, I think, is very powerful. You don't have to do a lot of work. A lot of agents and a lot of offices and a lot of associations hold events, and they're always looking for people to donate stuff. I find donating something a little bit off the wall, a little bit outside the norm, a little bit higher value than others do, can generate some amazing goodwill. Here's a silly example. We have had terrific success with really large screen TVs. And the prices have come down on TVs so much, it's not as big a deal, but it has a lot of glitz and glamour. And if you can get it hooked up so that you can run a little loop or have your logo showing on the TV, so much the better. So it's a bit of an investment, but as all the wise people in the world tell me, if you're looking to make money, you've got to spend money. So marketing has a budget. There is an investment required. I don't think of it as a spend because I'm looking for a return on my investment. I think of it as that. Lastly, co-presenting at seminars is a terrific opportunity. A lot of real estate agents and others have first-time buyer seminars, for example. And so if you can co-present, they'll usually have, the real estate agent will have a pitch, they'll have a lawyer explaining that process, they might have a lender, they might have a title company. But if you offer to also provide the home inspector perspective, that can give you really good connection to buyers who are engaged. And because someone else is doing all the work to set up the seminar, it's typically show up. They usually don't want more than 3 to 5, maybe 7 to 10 minutes at the most. You might have to sit on a round table, and why not build those professional relationships? That's a win in and of itself. I really like that model if you can get connected to that. And there are lots of business connection groups. I won't get into, there's a whole strategy around all of that, but I think that's worth considering. Okay. I am not going to talk about this at length because A, I'm not an expert, and we have a terrific partner, Nelia Design, who has a product called Inspector's Edge. And for Horizon users, they do a terrific job of helping you build and manage a very professional website for very little money, including hosting it free for you for 6 months. So I think a website is important, and reviews and videos have become super important on a website. Websites need to be updated to keep Google Analytics happy. SEO, search engine optimization, there's more than meets the eye to that, and you need some professional help in most cases. Paid search is something new to the home inspection profession over the last 10 years, I would say. Historically, home inspectors have not participated in it. Recently, I'm starting to see more and more of it. In fact, in some areas, it is quite prominent. So something else to consider. And when I talk about websites, you also need to think about the social media side of things, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whether it's LinkedIn, what else have we got? Instagram, Pinterest, Reddit, TikTok, and the 6 others that I don't even know about yet. But if you're talking about building that $1 million business, there is a focus there that is not to be missed. Branded email marketing is still absolutely huge, and I suspect you know that because you probably get lots of email marketing every day. And so, again, we build it into our Horizon software. We make it easy for you. We have a package to get you up and running of 15 or 16 right out of the gate. It's kind of a point and click kind of solution. And that stay in touch thing, again, this isn't a marketing presentation, so I'm not going to get into any details, except to say there is a secret in there that is worth exploring. And again, I bring everything back to a client focus. By that, I mean, The client is the hero who has a problem you can help solve. I don't want you to solve the problem. I want you to help them solve the problem. And so telling the client that you've been in business for 43 years and you're a consulting engineering company and you have 16 inspectors doesn't mean much to a whole lot of clients. They don't care about your background. They care what you're going to do for them. And here's another secret. When you are marketing, whether it's to consumers or real estate agents, please do not flog your competence, your technical skills, your infinite knowledge of all things housing. Because guess what? They already assume it. They assume that because you're a professional home inspector, you know your business, you know what you're doing. Pounding your chest about that stuff doesn't resonate with most people. They already say, yeah, I'm sure you know what you're doing. This is what you do for a living, for goodness sake. So find ways to show that you understand their challenges and how you can help them overcome those. Far different, in my mind, far more effective marketing approach. Okay, here's a simple one that surprisingly few people do. Say thank you. Is that old-fashioned? Is it corny? I don't think so. I think saying thank you is critically important, and I think it doesn't happen enough. I can tell you from the general service providers that I deal with in my day-to-day life, I rarely get a thank you. I regularly get a request to give them a ranking of 10 out of 10, but I rarely get a simple thank you. So whether it's a phone call, which is always in my mind the highest value, whether it's a handwritten card, which is second, some kind of electronic card might include a gift aspect to it, and then a thank you accompanied with an ask for a review, I think is just fine. Horizon users, for the most part, use Listen 360. We've been using Listen 360 for about 10 years. I won't go into my rant on that, but I will say a secret about asking for reviews is pay attention to the feedback. And I was reminded of this last week as I was preparing the presentation. This feedback came across my email. So there's a client who says, I was told by, whoops, did my screen just go black for a moment? Oh, hope we're back. I was told by my agent that purchasers don't always pay for a home inspection when purchasing a condo. I considered not doing it for a moment, but I'm really glad I did. Not only was the information invaluable, but I had a few questions for my inspector, and Milo was very accommodating. He documented everything, and even though I accompanied him through most of the inspection, there was more information in his written report than I would have thought. It was worth every penny. So, a couple of thoughts. Listen to the feedback because it reminded me that we need to promote our condo inspections in the sense that we need to remind people of the necessity for getting a condo inspected. And it also reminded me that asking for reviews can be an awesome marketing tool. I couldn't write an ad that was as credible as that piece of feedback. Should that be on your website? Should that be in your messaging? Absolutely. So lots of good can come out of that kind of thing. Okay, come on, slide. There we go. All right. I am going to touch on differentiation, and some people call it unique selling proposition. Some people call it competitive advantage. I call it you want to stand out in the crowd and you want to be different. You want to be memorable. There's a very successful home inspector I have a lot of respect for in the southeastern United States who stands out in the crowd by wearing very dramatic, very colorful pants. Now, he's also a terrific inspector, a great businessman, a gifted presenter, but he wants to make sure he's memorable, so he wears striped, polka dot, loud colored pants, and people remember him. It works. Now, that's not necessarily everybody's approach. There are ways to find something about yourself that is unique because we are all unique. So whether it's special skills that you have, experience that you've brought to the home inspection profession that may not be directly related, but may be absolutely valuable. And if you don't have special skills or wonderful experience, simple things like extraordinary client service. When people are moving day is a pain in the butt and nobody makes dinner on moving day, right? What if the home inspector delivered a pizza around dinner time on closing day? What if the home inspector arranged to have the lawn cut or the snow shoveled, depending on your climate, when you move into the house so everything looks attractive and inviting? People add value with gift cards, absolutely easy to do with electronics nowadays. If you bring a separate language to the table, that can be a huge marketing advantage. So you can reach out to people, and if you can communicate better with them, that's a huge leg up. Again, I touched on experience. Some people leverage their number of years doing home inspections. To those who are new to the business, I quite frankly find that mostly falls on deaf ears. People are really interested in how you're going to take care of them. Another way that you can be memorable and stand out is by staying in touch, ongoing communications. We talked about our marketing tools, but whether it's a newsletter, and there are lots of things you can do around that. And we also talked about that free technical advice for as long as you own your home. Those kinds of things do get noticed over time, and we get lots of feedback about those. So there are lots of tools that can make that work. Again, I don't want to dive too far down into any particular topic tonight. I want to kind of skim across the top of the water. So let me come back to a point I made earlier. And when you're talking about standing out or being different, maybe it's standing out and being different in different ways for different client types. So the problem that you might be solving for a client, as we talked about earlier, might not be helpful when you're talking to a real estate agent. So you might need to have two or more value propositions, points of differentiation, competitive advantages. And by the way, the best ones are hard to copy. The best ones put you apart and you stay there. Things like vehicle wrap, which may be an excellent idea, by the way, probably not a unique selling proposition because anybody who's willing to spend the money can do it. So a little bit different thinking there. But when I talk about being unique, think outside the box, like this home is outside the box, right? It's unique, it's different. Can you find a way to make yourself as different as that house is? Speaking of setting yourself apart, here's one way I don't want you to set yourself apart. Please, please, please do not discount your prices. Please do not compete on price. Firstly, it hurts you. Secondly, it hurts the entire profession. You've heard the phrase, a race to the bottom. Well, if you've got a competitor across the street and you're charging the same fee, you drop your fee $25 to win more business. What do you think your competitor across the street is going to do? Well, he's going to drop his prices $25 below yours. And you don't need to be a genius to figure out where that goes. So instead of that, I would like you to look in the other direction, but with some common sense. So let me tell you what we do. We raise our prices a couple of times a year. We raise it by small, odd amounts. We don't make any announcement about it. And we keep our prices near the top of the market, but not the absolute top. What you want to do, in my opinion, is price yourself the way you want to be considered by the market. And when you are launching a new business and your price is the lowest out there, what does that tell clients and agents? It tells them that you offer the lowest value. It tells them that you're not sure of yourself, you're new, you may not be competent. I think it sends entirely the wrong message. Some of you may tell me it works, and I'm really struggling to buy it over the long term. So being the lowest price is I think, a very dangerous place to be, and especially for those starting in business. Find out what your market is, and let me throw in this little sidebar. Home inspections are ridiculously too cheap for the value we bring. The amount of money that we help people save, the value that we bring is many, many times what our fees are. In our market, our home inspection fees are approximately 1/20th of 1% of the purchase price of the home. When you are spending the kind of money people spend for homes in our markets, and they want to try to save $50 on a home inspection, they have completely lost their mind and lost their focus. It's our job to help people understand the value of a home inspection, and for goodness sake, pay a fair dollar to get outstanding value. It's a message that gets lost, frankly, to my frustration in the marketplace all the time. Okay, time to me to get off my soapbox again. Okay, I keep climbing up onto it, and if Brian were in the room, he'd give me a really strong shove to get off the soapbox. Here's another way that I think is a great way to build your business. And again, it kind of applies whether you want to be small, medium, or large. And I'm going to tell you that there are probably 3 ways to grow your business. All of us have to find new clients, and we've been talking a little bit about how to do that. Raising your prices is another way to grow your business, and we just talked about that. But a third way, and a way that I absolutely love and might be the strongest of the 3, is selling more to your existing clients, because you've already won their trust. You have a relationship, you have their respect. And so bringing more value to the table, I think, is incredible. So there are a whole list of things that most home inspectors offer, and that's all terrific. But I'm going to tell you the secret on this, at least from my perspective. A lot of home inspectors try and ram these services down people's throat when they're booking a home inspection. Do you need fries with that? And the reality is, a lot of clients have said to us, I am so overwhelmed at this point. I just wanted a darn home inspection. I am not even sure I'm going to end up with this house. Why do I want all these other services that may or may not be of value to me, when the core thing is, what condition is the house in? That's the state of mind. And that's why, in my mind, selling these ancillary services when you're booking the original inspection is a bit of a fool's game. What makes terrific sense to me, I talked about staying in touch. I talked about reaching out. I talked about branded email marketing. Once people have made that commitment, decided, yes, this is their home for their family for the next several years, then to talk about things like mold, indoor air quality, video sewer scans, and so on, and the value that those can bring to people. Now that, in fact, the heart in the mouth, do I buy this property or not situation is gone. Now they're settling in for the long term, and the value you can bring is significant, but you need to remind them after they've moved in and show them how you can help. Remember, your role is to be the long-term mentor, advisor, guide to their success. One last thought on ancillary services. Clients and agents both like the fact that if something else is needed, the convenience of one-stop shopping that you provide can be very much appreciated. Okay, speak their language. When people ask me what I do for a living, I don't tell them I'm in the home inspection business, at least not at first. I say we're in the communications business. And then I very often add, we just happen to do home inspections. So this is who we are, and this is what we do. And when I mean communication, I mean verbal, I mean written, I mean reports, I mean website, I mean social media, I mean emails, the whole gamut. When it comes to report, those of you who have listened to me before know that I am a fanatic about making it simple, clear, easy to read. I have a whole talk about less is more. Get the junk out of your reports, the cover your butt stuff they don't want to know, The description stuff, the home inventory stuff, they really don't care. I won't go down that road. It's kind of disconcerting when my screen goes black every now and again, but mercifully it keeps coming back. Using photos and illustrations, absolutely. So lots of white space, lots of pictures. Nobody loves long narrative. Stay away from that. And for those of you interested in creative writing, go do it somewhere other than a home inspection report. We've got, I don't know, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 standard items in Horizon. For the very most part, you can find what you need. Every time a home inspector sets out to write a very helpful couple of sentences about something, things go sideways. And unless you're a trained technical writer, and unless you have the patience and enthusiasm to proofread or have a proofreader, there are going to be mistakes. I won't go into my rant about jargon and how it doesn't belong in there and how you don't show off your technical skills because clients don't understand. I'll leave that for another day. We talked about, as part of being in the communications business, that maintaining perspective, the no drama, the no overreaction. And I know a lot of home inspectors across America now are encouraging clients not to show up for the inspection or only to show up for the last 15 or 30 minutes. I think that's absolutely criminal. I understand I can do an inspection faster without a client there. But what the client loses is that ability to see how hard you work, the ability to understand the voyage of discovery with you. I'm going to go back to something that I haven't talked about for a while, and that is friends don't sue friends. When a client sees how hard you work, getting up on the roof, getting into attics and crawl spaces, going the extra mile, taking covers off things, looking, testing, working for them, I find there is a relationship at the end of that that involves a lot of trust and a lot of respect. And I checked with our inspection manager, Sal, before I did the presentation, just to make sure the world hasn't changed. And he said, no, it's absolutely still true. And the fact goes like this. When we get a complaint, and we do get complaints, it is almost always from a client who did not attend the inspection. And that includes, sometimes you'll have a client attend the inspection, but the wife attends the inspection and the husband doesn't, or one partner does, the other one doesn't. If you're going to get a call back, it's from the partner who did not attend the inspection. So I know it takes a little longer. I know it's a little more work, but you are in the communication business, and there is no better communication than first person, singular, face to face, COVID notwithstanding. Lastly, provide solutions, not just problems. I'm going to tell you ballpark costs really help. I'm going to tell you that's a Carson Dunlop unique selling proposition. We have always given ballpark costs. I see the world changing on that a little bit. I see there are some third-party services providing ballpark costs for home inspectors and their clients. Interesting model. We've been doing it forever. In my opinion, it's a huge part of the value that we add because we're trying to get people thinking about the solution and what they need to get there rather than dwelling on the problem. Okay. Setting the expectations I touched on early. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. It's just crazy. Minimize the surprises. People need to know that no house is perfect. You are going to find some stuff that you are going to suggest they improve. Doesn't mean it's a bad house. We talked about reducing risk but not eliminating it. We talked about encouraging clients to attend. Here's an easy way to underpromise and overdeliver. People, as I mentioned before, it's table stakes that they trust. You know your business. So they're not going to be in a position to judge the skill of your inspection, but they will notice if you arrived on time, if you delivered the report on time, and you treated them with respect when you were there. It's so simple. And yet I see people screw it up all the time. It's if you think you can deliver your report by 4 in the afternoon, tell them it'll be there by 10 and then deliver it at 4. And then if you deliver it at 6, you're still a winner. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. So darn simple. My dad was one of the smartest people I ever knew, but this message took a long time to sink in, and I finally understood it, and I finally agree with it. And he told me this: that if you show up on time, do what you said you were going to do, when you said you were going to do it, you just beat 95% of your competition. It sounds ridiculously simple. It just happens to be true. The right attitude. I touched on this at the very beginning. I want you to be quietly confident, not arrogant. I want you to be empathetic. And I've spent a little bit of time talking about how home buyers generally feel. And it's important for you to think about how you're making them feel. You can't be detached and cold and apathetic. You've got to be engaged. You've got to be genuinely interested in their success. Indifference is your enemy. I'm going to give you one more little secret that I think is a very sensible thing to do. During the introductions at the beginning of the inspection, you'll ask people a few questions and you'll learn something. Maybe where they grew up, where they're moving from, something fairly garden variety. You're not going to ask a bunch of probing questions. They might talk about they're moving here because they've just had their third child and they need a bigger house. Whatever it is, in that opening conversation, do yourself a favor and commit one thing they say to memory, just one. Remember one thing they said. And then in your closing conversation, say, and I hope you're going to be so happy with your third child and your whole family together in this house. Something corny like that. You can probably do much better than that. But something that shows that you listened to what they told you. And communication is not about talking and lecturing and being pompous like I've been for the last hour. Communication is a dialogue, and listening is 50% of it. And demonstrating that you listened and that you cared enough to mention it at the end is, I think, the right attitude. Okay, I'm going to throw a bunch of little stuff against the wall, some of which we've talked about, some of which we haven't, but they're things that I happen to believe, and if there's something in there that helps you a bit, I'm thrilled. So we touched on it at the outset, but in everything you do with respect to your business, start by thinking about what the client needs. Treat your clients like favorite relatives even when they don't deserve it. Understand that people buy most things, including houses, crazy as it sounds, on emotion, and they try to rationalize it with logic. You are the rationalization tool. Understand that. They buy with their heart and commit with their head. You are talking to their head because, quite frankly, you're never going to get close to their heart, and in most cases, it's long since committed to the home anyway. I could go into what that means. You know what? I'm not going to get through. I'm going to try and stay on time so I won't do a big explosion on that point. Understand the fear-greed pendulum. Understand that clients, everybody wants to make a great investment and have their house go up in value. And everyone wants their friends and family and coworkers to say, you were so smart, you bought that house at exactly the right time, and what a terrific investment, and you are so clever. The fear side of it is, I can't believe you bought that house. And we'll talk about an article in a minute where somebody waived the home inspection, ended up with a house that cost them $120,000. That's the fear side of the pendulum. Your clients are going to be somewhere in there and they're going to bounce around, which is what makes your world a little tougher and what makes the real estate profession's world really tough is you don't know from minute to minute where clients are on the fear-greed pendulum of buying a home. It's a very complex thing. As I said or alluded to before, mentally, they've already moved into the house by the time we show up. So you may want to color your comments with that in mind. Again, I won't go into depth. Here's a secret. Borrow and adopt good ideas. I've done it all my life. I would go so far as to say I've never had an original idea in my life, but I have found lots of ideas that I really love and I have brought them into our business. So borrow and adapt. Some would say I'm stealing, but I don't look at it that way. And it's a terrific way to grow. I love simple. Elegantly simple is better. I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs, not so much the person, but what he accomplished. And elegantly simple is his phrase. And I think that is magic. Absolutely. Most important question you will ever ask is why. So listen and learn. We talked about that. Be curious. By the way, here is a secret and a life skill. When somebody asks you a question you weren't expecting and doesn't seem to be relevant, and you don't know where they're coming from, here's what I suggest you say. That's an interesting question. Can I ask why you're interested? And so don't, if the question seems a bit funny to you, don't lurch into an answer that might end you in a place you don't want to be. So why is a terrific question to ask. And in general, when you're expressing your opinions, I would love for you to express them as questions so you don't put your foot in your mouth. Lastly, and again, this comes from my family. This was my mother who said, don't do anything that you hope nobody catches you doing. If you find yourself looking over your shoulder and hoping nobody notices, it's time to stop doing it. Okay, oh my gosh, I'm over time. All right, I need to stop this. Oh, never mind, think big, that's not important. Let's move on. I am going to, first of all, say thank you. Secondly, I am going to hand things back to Brian. I think before I do that, though, I did want to do one thing. And I know we have some attendees tonight who are not yet part of the Horizon community. And I hope this evening has given you a bit of a sense of what we're all about, and I hope it's provided some value for you. And you should know that our team will be reaching out after the webinar with a special offer for you. So thank you for attending. Thanks for joining us. Stick around for the Q&A. It's where it gets messy. And watch for the message from our team. And what I'd like to do now is let Jacob from Homebinder explain a little bit about what this Horizon partner brings to the table to help you in your business. And yes, we are integrated with Homebinder. We work with them together. I think it's a really good spot for me to say, Brian, help me and take over and let Jacob drive the bus.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. And it was a pleasure to listen to you. Honestly, I think a lot of the things that you talked about tonight do not just help an inspection business. I think any business could learn a lot from communication and relationships, and just a lot of it in there. So it was a pleasure for me. So thanks. Actually, I liked that you said raising prices, finding new clients, and selling to existing clients are things that you suggest for growing inspection business, because those are the three things I was going to focus on today. We help raise your agent value, right? Typically in a year, our clients are seeing 20% growth from existing agents. We allow you to raise your price because you're adding another value-added service to your business. It's something that truly provides value and justifies raising your price. And the last is it builds long-lasting relationships with the client and seeds ancillary business, right? So you can retain business and then seed additional business lines. And so what is Homebinder? Simply, it's an app, it's an online platform that you can use to track everything in your home, and it enables the people involved in that real estate transaction to empower the homeowner. Next slide, please, Brian. This is an example of the current look of the Homebinder. We're actually reskinning it, but this is how it looks right now. Again, it has everything from documents, projects, who did what when. You can recommend contractors, or pros as we call them, for the homeowner to reach out to. We have appliance recall alerts. There's maintenance reminders that are built in. And think of the average buyer today who I feel like less and less of us can even change a tire on a car, let alone know what to do with a house, especially if it's your first one. And so things like reminding them to clean their dryer vent, getting your furnace serviced, things that some buyers, maybe the millennial buyers now, just don't know what to do. And so you're providing a maintenance reminder list for them to stay on top of these things, along with the other stuff involved in the binder. And then it's branded with both you and the agent who's involved in the transaction. Agent stays top of mind, helps you build a stronger relationship with the agent. And we have what we think is one of the best, if not the best, home value estimate in the industry. Right? We get data from Zillow, we get data from other places, as well as data from the homeowner, and that allows us to create a very accurate estimate. And it's all designed to encourage them to engage more, so you stay top of mind, and they are taking care of what's likely their biggest asset. Next slide, please. So, right, long-term value, lasting relationships, seeding new business and recurring business, and creating partners for referrals. That's the value for you. And for the client, it's a centralized operating system that's going to increase the value of their home. And with the integrations through Horizon and other platforms, other business partners, we're starting to automate the updates of the binder more and more. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to show one of these reminders. These have an 80% open rate because, again, they're value add. It's not just a holiday email or like a cookie recipe. It's something that's going to provide value to the homeowner, and that's why these are opening up at 80%. And again, it's keeping your face in the face of your partner, the agent, in front of them. And so that's all for me. You can kick it to the last slide. If you want to reach out for a demo, Casey is the one who's going to be running them. And we are offering, for the people who were present tonight, 30% off for their first year subscription, and people who pay the year up front will get an extra month for free as well. And so any questions, feel free to email me. I'm jacob@homebinder.com, as well as Casey, who you could set up a demo with.
That is awesome. Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, if you want to stick around, there's probably some questions as well that will come in. So
yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have been with Homebinder a long time, and I can tell you one thing that I absolutely and totally respect about what Homebinder has done is they have raised the bar across the board. They have continuously gotten bigger, stronger, and better, and they're in a very good place right now. So yeah, my hat goes off to them, and I have some faint appreciation for how much work it has been to get to where they are. All right, Brian, am I ready to move on?
yeah, we're just this week you want to mention what's coming up next month, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. We got actually a lot of questions for you, and some for Jacob of Homebinder.
Beautiful. All right. So next time, I think we're going to go back to a Wednesday evening. August 4th is the plan. And we're going to talk about marketing in some way, shape, or form in kind of a more organized and perhaps considerably more helpful way than we did tonight. Now, Brian, as always, I've got one more thing I want to say before we go to Q&A, if I might. This piece showed up on our CTV national news 2 days ago. And you've got the link there, but you probably know everything you need to know from the title of the piece. Dream House Becomes Nightmare for Ontario Family Who Passed on Home Inspection. So I'm irritated when I read the title because this is rampant in our market where prices are going through the roof. People are sacrificing everything, including a home inspection, to buy a house almost sight unseen. It is so unfair. And by the way, I've got 5 young kids trying to figure out how to get into the housing market. And it is just crazy. It is so unfair, so insane. I am very unhappy about it. I would love for it to be part of the Q&A to know whether you're seeing it in your market and what you're doing about it, if anything. So love to get some insight on that. So Brian, that link is there. I don't know if we can provide a link in the chat as well, but anyway,
Yep, certainly can.
Okay, thank you for that. So
Well,
it's an interesting article. It's not very long, and it just shouldn't have had to happen. That's exactly what it boils down to. So very frustrating. And this is, I mean, in one sense, it's good. This is a world that we can have an impact on changing, but we need to work together. We need to think about it and find a way to change it. All right, time for me to shut up. Let's get to some Q&A, Brian.
perfect. Excellent. Well, first and foremost, Jacob, question for you. With regard to HomeBinder, what's the cost for the year?
It depends on volume. I'll give it to you without the discount, so I don't have to do the math. It's $708 for the year before the discount. If you're doing 200 to 300 inspections, or sorry, less than 200, and 200 to 300 is $780. So small difference. $708, $780, and then apply the 30% discount. Yeah, and if you happen to be Canadian, we bill in the Canadian dollar as well. No increase, just make it easy there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And a follow-up question, just with regard to HomeBinder, is it primarily something the agent should be providing to the client?
We do not sell to individual agents, just because if the value add for our partner is the ability to market this on behalf of the agent, put them on there, the incentive kind of goes away if they can just sign up themselves and offer it without you. And additionally, we think that's better for the homeowner too, right? You're the one who knows kind of what's best for the home. The home inspection report through Horizon is going to automatically deliver. And I didn't put this in the presentation, but it's all automated. And so more data goes into the binder through the integration with Horizon than it would if it was just an individual agent setting it up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Alan, Patrick would like to know, since realtors get paid based on a percentage of the sale, even if a lower price home could require more work, so why don't inspectors charge based on percentage?
It's a great question, and the short answer is that was how we started out. Our fees were based on the purchase price of the home. However, the rest of the home inspection community across North America knew better than we did. So everybody else was charging on square footage and age, and eventually we just got pushed there. We stuck it out as long as we could for quite a while. But the collective wisdom of the home inspection community said that doesn't make sense. With, by the way, somewhat ironically, some pressure from the real estate community, even though that's how they charge. So it's a question that once again makes me frustrated.
Fair enough. Touchy subject.
Yes.
Daryl would like to know, with regard to co-presenting, you sometimes only get like 2 minutes. Any strategies to give them, get your fair shake? Like, I guess you'd probably need at least 10 minutes, right?
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
I'm going to tell you that you can do yourself and your company as much good in 2 minutes as you can in 2 hours. Because, as you just found out, it's really hard to listen to an old guy drone on for an hour. And frankly, when I do real estate presentations, which I sadly still do from time to time, I try and make them as short as possible because people have a limited attention span and people cannot resist looking at their phone for 15 minutes, let alone an hour. And frankly, in the first 2 minutes, I want you to be engaging, compassionate, and memorable, and step aside. The human brain doesn't get a stronger impact the longer you talk. You would think it would be so, but it's not. It just doesn't work that way. So if you can, a lot of punch in a little time is a terrific way to do it. It's less stressful for you, requires less preparation. There's no tendency to read notes because you don't need any because the presentation is so short. There is so much right about a 2-minute presentation. It's amazing.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. Diego wants to know, can you remember or remind us, what's the company that you can get a website designed and hosted? And what was the promotion that happens for Horizon users? Sorry, shameless plug, but got to do it.
So it's inspectorsedge.com is the website. The company is Nelia Design. These are graphics designers we've been working with for a bunch of years. And it's really not a shameless promotion because we don't, there's no revenue for Carson Dunlop. We're doing this because we think these people are terrific. We think they bring you terrific value. And they will set up your website. And when I say their website, they will do that. They will help you design a logo. They will do your brochures, your business cards, whatever you want from a marketing standpoint. They use a lot of our content in their website designs, but because they're graphics designers, you have tons of choices and you can't make a bad decision from a graphic standpoint. They don't give you the opportunities to combine things that look ugly. So they do it for you. And they do that part for free and they host for 6 months for you for nothing. And then moving forward, I've forgotten a little bit, but it's in the $30 a month range thereafter. It's if you're interested in looking professional, having any kind of respectable company brand, I would think you're insane not to look at it.
Speaking of looking professional, how's that hair?
What hair? We are coming out of lockdown. I can probably get a haircut before the next webinar. It has been a long time, and apologies to all of those who are not wild about the 1970s Neil Young, Tom Petty look. I'll get over it.
I think they all appreciate it. Peter has a great question here. Sorry, I scrolled past one there. So, since this webinar is about business, I have a very important question. I started my home inspection business 3 years ago. At the beginning, I made a point to meet as many agents as I could. I made contact with at least 300 agents and managed to build up enough agent referrals to have a semi-successful, first year. The second year, COVID hit, and the first half of the year was wiped out. The second half, I did okay then. Everything got locked up again, and a few inspections got canceled. How do you deal with that? What have you been able to do in that sense?
It's a hardship that, again, to echo Jacob's comments, affects a lot of businesses, not just home inspection. What can you do depending on where you live? I hope your government has provided some assistance for you. What we have tried to do is stay in touch with our real estate community and have tried to help them wherever we can. We are doing Zoom presentations now. They're still, the real estate offices are still aware their people need technical, continuing education and so on. So that's an opportunity. Focusing, the top agents, at least in our market, houses are selling like crazy, agents are busy and so on. I am worried that this, at least in our market, this tendency to skip the home inspection does not carry on. And the other thing that I am tempted to do, we've done a little bit of it, but not probably enough, is get some messages. I think in the last webinar, Brian, if memory serves, I might have circulated a little paper about never skip the inspection directed at consumers.
Yes, sir.
The other thing I would throw into the mix is something I didn't mention tonight as a marketing opportunity, and I actually meant to. And that is, well, I didn't want to spend too much time on sellers, but given COVID and given these hot real estate markets, there has never been a better time to focus on pre-listing inspections. They are a win for everybody. They make infinite sense. We have talked about them in the past. And I will tell you that through the last year, which we've also gotten through, we have been carried by our pre-listing inspections. And currently, the last numbers I looked at, about 2/3 of our home inspections are pre-listing inspections for sellers. So it is a part of your business. There's some complexity to it. And I know lots of people have tried and said, people aren't listening. I might say it's because you're trying to sell it rather than educate about it, but I don't know that for a fact. So as always, Brian, sorry, a very long answer to a short question.
No, I don't think anyone complains about your lack of brevity, that's for sure. It's very insightful. And I think this secondary question, another question, tongue-tied here. I should learn how to speak properly tonight. Michael, given the current market trend in Southern Ontario, do you think our industry will bounce back in the near future? That probably sort of dovetails into what you were just talking about with PLIs or pre-listings.
Yeah, I think the PLIs help, but I think, excuse me, I think long term, yes, our market is going to come back balanced. I have lived through this a few times on both ends of the spectrum, by the way. And in some pockets in our immediate market, we're already starting to see a softening. We are seeing houses listed with offer dates being Tuesday at 7 p.m. and nobody submitting an offer. So we're starting to see some changes, and I would really love to get back to a balanced market where buyers and sellers can work together on a level playing field and home inspection takes its rightful place. I will say the media, I think, bears some responsibility. I was thrilled CTV did put that article out. I think if you have the opportunity to communicate with the consumer advocate people in the media in your community, every newspaper has consumer advocate writers. And the CTV piece was actually put out. It was Pat Foran, who is a high profile consumer advocate on their television show. Those people should hear the message about the importance of not skipping the inspection. Forwarding that link to that article to other media outlets, I think is a terrific idea, with the solution attached of saying where the market needs to move is to pre-listing inspections. And by the way, I've been reading some realtor publications that I'm lucky enough to be able to subscribe to, and there is a strong move afoot in the real estate community to make this process more fair. There are a lot of real estate agents who are not happy about the way things are working, and a big part of a 2-article series that I read did in fact address the importance and the need for pre-listing inspections. So some real estate agents choose to look the other way, but the really good agents embrace pre-listing inspections. Once you understand it and the value and the power of it, it is very compelling.
Thank you, Alan. Jeffrey would like to know, what would be the average ballpark home inspection costs?
Not enough. So our fees start at about $560. Our average fee is about $670, something like that. The average across America is hard to get a read on. It's probably in the high $300 range or low 400s. It's really hard to get a read. Like if you're in the San Jose area, it can be well over $1,000, and other areas, the average prices are closer to 300. So somewhat regionally specific, but I find it a sad commentary on the lack of respect the home inspection profession garners.
Thank you. And my apologies if I mispronounce this next name, but I believe it's Etienne. I'd like to know, or your feedback. So I saw an inspector say he went from roughly 700 inspections a year down to 150 due to the market of buyers buying homes firm with no inspections. What's your thought on sort of the validity of that statement? Is he a one-off in the industry, or does that tend to be the norm where everything's just sort of downscaling right now? What is a realistic and fair amount of inspections to do in a year? And let's perhaps set that as two things, maybe as a sole proprietor, and then perhaps in the context of your own business as well, sir?
Great question. I saw that statistic as well, and I actually did some digging into not that person's business, but other ones around them that I had some access to. And my finding was that businesses were not down to that extent on the average. It was more like people had lost 40% of their business rather than the 80%. So again, that's going to vary region to region. In a conventional market, I would say a home inspector doing 250 inspections a year at an average fee of $400 is generating $100,000 in sales in a year. So when you ask me what's a reasonable number, that is a reasonable number. The most recent operation survey I've seen from ASHI, and it's quite old now, was a little over 200 on average, but that included part-time people. A sole proprietor working at total capacity, about the highest I've seen is about 700 inspections a year, but those inspectors don't have a life. They're working 7 days a week. So the highest sustainable number, probably 500, is a pretty aggressive number. And again, depends on the community you work in, travel distances and so on, travel times more importantly. So yeah, that kind of thing works. As you grow into a multi-inspector firm, I would suggest that the average number of inspections that you would expect from full-time inspectors might be typically between 300 and 400.
Thank you very much, Alan. Fred, hope you're doing well tonight. Fred has a comment here, Alan. I lost 2 jobs last month that canceled the day before the inspection when the buyers decided to waive their inspection. Many agents tell them that they increase the odds of getting the house to waive the inspection. Shorter option periods are also a big problem to provide quality inspection services. So his solution is to encourage, to give them adequate time for better inspections. But do you find that happens often with yourself, perhaps at Carson Dunlop, maybe more on the buyer or seller side? What's your take on that?
Yeah, we have had very little of that at Carson Dunlop, but I've heard a lot of it, and I find it unconscionable that people are telling home inspectors. I've got another paper out, by the way, about don't mistake quick inspections for home inspections, because they're not, and I won't go too far down that road. I'll try and stick on answering the question, but a pre-offer inspection is one possible solution, but if the agent won't afford you time to do the inspection, there's not much you can do. But I do not understand how we can be in an environment where a real estate agent can set an artificial deadline for when they choose to have offers come and not allow prospective buyers to do the minimal amount of due diligence provided by a home inspection. Don't tell me there's no time. A home inspection takes 2 to 3 hours on average. We deliver our reports same day. A lot of home inspection companies deliver their reports on site, others 24 hours. There is time for a home inspection. So I'm not wild about pre-offer home inspections because the buyer has wasted their money if they don't win the bid. On the other hand, it's way better than nothing, miles better than a quick inspection or a walkthrough or a rapid inspection or a 5-point inspection. And it's better than what I'm seeing some clients asking for. And by the way, those inspections that you lost, if you've got their client information, contact them and offer them a post-closing inspection. Just because you can't help them negotiate the deal doesn't mean you can't help them have a better life in that home.
Sage advice. Joseph here. Hey, Joseph. Hope you're doing well tonight. Alan, and I think this complements and dovetails into it, right? So people canceling, it's quite unfortunate, right? You're sort of out the job that day. Now, what's some recourse, right? And what do you think of pushing for a partial payment maybe, 50% or all of it, and then having a cancellation policy where you refund them maybe 50% back or something. You have a bit of leverage. What's your take on that? How do you think that can help in that situation?
Interesting question. We actually do have a cancellation policy, and it's in our inspection agreement. And so when people accept our inspection contract, they are agreeing to the cancellation part of it. And if people cancel within 24 hours of the inspection, they are responsible for 50% of the fee. Now, I will tell you, when the circumstances are beyond the client's control or there are other extenuating circumstances, we will forgive that. But I'd much rather be forgiving one than wishing I had asked for one. So there is some value in doing that. I don't love it as a business model because you are collecting money that you didn't earn. Clients will pay because they agreed to pay it, but will they resent it? Absolutely. So I'm not wild about that. Remember at the beginning of the presentation when I talked about not focusing on trying to win the war all in one battle and trying to get the maximum number of dollars out of each inspection? That might be an example where you might want to be compassionate. And when people call and cancel, you might say, well, remember that you do have a cancellation fee, but in this case, as a professional courtesy, we will forgive that. And with the understanding and hope that when things change, whether it's post closing, we'll come and do the inspection, or if they didn't get the house, on the next one. Another thing that we do is if we do an inspection, a pre-offer inspection, and people don't get the house, we do discount the second inspection for them. Even though it's no less work for us, we do that to try and help build a relationship. So we give a $50 discount on the second inspection for the same client in the same transaction cycle.
Thank you, Alan. And Jonathan, Jonathan would like to know, what's the best way to increase your knowledge to become a better informed inspector? And what's the best way to get training for ancillary inspections?
I've distracted myself in thinking about the answer to that. Probably for ancillary inspections, start with the associations that you belong to. If you don't belong to one, you should join one. I don't care which one. So that is certainly one avenue. And then others, for thermal imaging, there are independents that are easily accessible. I won't mention specific names because they might not be available in your area. But the wonderful thing about the Google machine is you can type in a few keywords and get the answers really quickly. So depending on where you are and what you're looking for, it's kind of a broad question, but yeah, that should not be hard to find. And as I say, a lot of these are focused at home inspectors, so the associations are a good place to start. And Brian, in my distraction, I've forgotten what the first half of the question was.
How to become a good home inspector. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this one key resource.
Oh, yes, I knew it was an important question. To become a good home inspector, I spent about 3 years developing a home inspection training program that is a 10-course post-secondary program that's been around now for approaching 25 years. It's used in lots of colleges across the country. It's offered also through Carson Dunlop. It is, in my opinion, the necessary foundation on which to build a career or a business in home inspection. I'll leave it at that.
Hey, it's a great course. I've taken it myself. Thad would like to know, this is actually really good. So he's in a situation where he's looking to hire other inspectors, okay? But it's the fear or struggle of giving up control, right? Yeah. How do you overcome that? How do you manage that, right?
It's a great question. And if control is more important to you than anything else, you are going to struggle. So it's my way of saying you need to give up control, but you need to do it in a sensible, progressive way. And so bringing people in, by way of explanation, we typically spend somewhere between 3 and 6 months training inspectors before they do their first. So we don't give up control lightly. And we start by having people watch and listen, and then do a bit, and then do the whole thing with us watching and listening. And then moving forward on the control spectrum, one of the things that has worked very well for us, and one of the things that when we built our software, I was adamant about this feature being included. Because it is web-based software as a service, everyone can see what everyone in your firm is doing. So I can see the report being written, I can see the photos. And one of the things, by the way, that Horizon does to make life better is the photos that you take can be put into the file inside Horizon. And so we typically have a lot of photos visible. The ones that go into the reports are a subset of all the photos. So when you think about control and you think about quality assurance, I think about proofreading reports, and you can do it so that you proofread the report before it gets sent out to your client. Additionally, you can review the photos that are there but weren't part of the report to look for something that perhaps should have been included in the report. So there are controls you can put in place to avoid losing control, but I'm just nervous about the question because you have to be willing to make a leap of faith at some point, because you cannot be looking over a home inspector's shoulder all the time, tracking everything they do. So there are some risks involved. I won't go into insurance, but you need to protect yourself that way as well. Yeah, time for me to stop talking, Brian, because I ramble again.
No, that was great advice. We are now past the 9:30 mark. I do want to be respectful of every time. We do have still over 100 people listening in, but what I think is maybe one or two more questions. We will then cap off for the evening. I know we're going to be back in 6 weeks to go over marketing, and there's actually a couple questions here near the end that are more marketing focused. So Stephen, for example, on how to promote your business and mold inspection company and services. I think that's going to tie in very nicely for what we're going to be talking about at length in 6 weeks from now. So for more marketing focused questions, folks, I would love you to submit them, and that will give us some good inspiration for what we can talk about and explain in the forthcoming community events. Now, Corey does have a question, and this goes back to the education platform that you offer, sir. Does Carson Dunlop offer any like job placement or franchising at present, or basically after they take the course? Is that something that they offer?
Yeah, great question. We do have a couple of relationships, and we do have a job board on our education portal. So our education program is delivered online, and specific to our students, we do have some opportunities there.
Thank you. And let's cap off. Last question, Prakash. And my apologies if I mispronounced this. Prakash, hope I did that correctly. Would like to know, is Horizon on Facebook, social media? Where can we reach us? I know it's hard to post a link right here, so we can do it in the newsletter, but where can we be found?
Well, Brian, you can probably answer that better than I can. We do have a fairly active Facebook users group with a community of several hundred home inspectors who participate regularly. There might be a better answer, and again, if you can post some information on that on the chat, that might be super helpful.
Perfect. Well, that's it. We've got an active user group. There's over 600 members. We'd love for you to join in. It is a private user group, so you have to be a Horizon user. We get a lot of good questions, so you're more than welcome to chat community-related topics. We'll post Horizon updates. Alan shares his insights there as well, so we would love to see you on board. And, of course, we'll include some details in our newsletter. So, Alan, any parting thoughts for this evening, sir?
Well, I said at the beginning I thought this presentation would be fun, and it certainly was for me. So I hope you got something out of it. On the parts that you disagreed with me on, I hope you're not disagreeing too violently. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Brian, who always makes this super easy for me. And if you've ever done it, you probably have some appreciation of how tough it is to host and facilitate, keep everything going, manage the questions and so on. So Brian, thanks for making my life easy. And thanks to everybody for attending. And I'm looking for COVID to be done.